Hey everyone, I'm TrackerTD, and today we're going to talk about Sonic. Yet again. So after I'd had my fill of messing with Sonic Adventure 2 mods recently, I turned my attention to the first game. I already had a laundry list of mods that I wanted to cover for Sonic Adventure, but in the process of making a video like the SA2 one, I wound up adding more and more mods to that list, and in the end, I even learned a bit of Visual Studio just so I could make a new mod of my own. So, it's time to do that thing I did again, where I go through all the mods I've used, tweaked and made to have my ideal Sonic Adventure experience. And this time, I'm actually using my voice to narrate through this, because I feel like for how hands-on I was this go around, it'll be easy to explain things this way. First things first, get the SADX Mod Installer by PKR. Even if you ignore everything else I say in this video, at least get that. It'll make sure your copy of SADX on Steam is mod ready, throw in a slew of improvements while it's at it. I'd also recommend grabbing Sonic Adventure DX Fixed Edition by SonicFreak94. It has various bug fixes for the game that are simply nice to have. The mods installed by the installer include the Input mod to better install controllers that use X input, the Lantern engine restoring the Dreamcast's palette-based lighting system. Another mod, named Palette Fixes, isn't included with the installer, but it's handy to have as it tweaks some of the stranger lantern lighting. Dreamcast Conversion restores Dreamcast stage textures, object layouts, and much more besides. Notably, you can also use this mod to restore object layouts and content that were found in the game's 1998 Japanese-only release, such as the infamous cowgirl sign in Casinopolis. Dreamcast Characters, which restores the SA1 Dreamcast character models. Onion Skin Blur, which gives Sonic's full-speed run its blur effect, again from the 1998 release of Sonic Adventure. It also gives Tails' flight his motion blur back too. If you downloaded this mod a while ago, it might actually be worth checking you have the most recent version, as certain effects were broken in the first version of this mod, and I didn't realise this until I was very recently setting up mods on a fresh copy for my brother, and then noticed the difference. HD GUI 2, or HD GUI 2 if you like having fun, remakes much of the game's user interface in much higher resolution, making it a lot nicer to navigate through menus and such. Sound Overhaul provides the highest possible sound effect quality, as well as changing how certain audio is processed to be easier on the ears. I slightly modified my copy to change the bizarre splorch noise that Sonic Adventure loves to use for its explosion effects, and I replaced it with a slightly edited version of Sonic Adventure 2's enemy explosion effect, which sounds a lot more normal to me. I also muted the animals chirping after destroying anything in the game, because that was just annoying. They'll still chirp if you collect them though. Time of Day, as the name suggests, this changes the time of day in adventure fields once you've completed the story. Just take the train and bask in that glorious sunset once again. The Egg Carrier Ocean Music mod restores the music track The Ocean to playing on the Egg Carrier once it's in the, the ocean. Idle Chatter allows you to easily access the wide variety of idle animation dialogue in the game with a press of a button. Even bosses have unique idle dialogue that is usually extremely hard to hear. Steam Achievements lets you get Steam Achievements, even though the installer technically restores the game to the older PC version. This is very handy to have. The Frame Limiter caps the frame rate more precisely than the game does on its own. And finally, Dreamcast DLCs re-implements the DLC from the Dreamcast version of Sonic Adventure. I did a video about the DLCs many years ago. Many years ago. Holy crap, that video was a long time ago. On the topic of the HD GUI mod, that's actually where my specialisation of these mods sort of begins, besides the stuff I mentioned a second ago. Though minor, I opted to replace the life monitor icons with the 2D artwork used for the life icons in the heads-up display, because I wasn't really feeling the 3D head icons that it includes by default. They are good and they are accurate, I just wasn't personally feeling them. There was another thing bugging me though, something extremely pedantic and silly. Metal Sonic's unlockable in Sonic Adventure DX, and the Dreamcast Characters mod actually gives you the option of using his model from the final Egg Adventure Field area as his playable model. It's like a Dreamcast-styled Metal Sonic. But Adventure was before Metal Sonic got his soft, modern redesign, and so it's basically classic Metal Sonic. Actual classic Metal Sonic, not whatever generations thought classic Metal Sonic was. His life icon in the HD GUI mod is Sonic channel artwork from after either Adventure or Adventure DX released. Yes, this actually bugged me. But it's not like there was any other Yuakawa Metal Sonic artwork to use, let alone from that era. Except a Yuakawa version of Metal Sonic's artwork from Sonic CD helpfully shows up in Sonic Pinball Party for some reason, so I just touched that up and imported it into Sonic Adventure. I think it works pretty nicely, and it fits better with the DC style Metal Sonic. Moving on from the installer stuff, one of my favourite mods and one of the largest I use is one I don't actually see talked about that often. Fixes, adds and beta restores does exactly what the name suggests. Fixes stuff, adds stuff, and restores cut content. Fixes include allowing the Jackal card to actually spawn during the night's pinball game, and reverting characters to their idle animation after a victory pose, which actually lets Sonic move in his cutscene after Red Mountain. In terms of additions and beta restorations, a lot of unused animations, models, details and sounds can be enabled, such as cut intercom dialogue during Skydeck and Final Egg, or Gamma pleading with Beta at the start of their final fight, the unused animation for Angel Island's door, the star jump panel at the end of a string of jump panels, extra voice clips for characters when they collect items or get hurt. There's a lot of stuff in this mod, and it's all totally configurable. For example, one thing the mod restores are unused paths for when Supersonic attacks Perfect Chaos, but they're janky as hell. Thankfully, you can just turn them off with a click, and keep all the other great features of the mod still intact. It really lets you tailor the experience to how you want, and I love being able to control that level of added detail. While this mod does fix Sonic being frozen in his victory animation after Red Mountain, it doesn't fix him getting stuck on an object when trying to leap to the tornado. So I also quickly cobbled together a mod that removes the offending object and lets Sonic finally jump off that damn cliff. But in the time since I wrote this script, somebody else made the exact same mod and actually uploaded theirs. Oops. Another mod I use with a sizable impact on the game is Sonic Adventure Retranslated. I mentioned a similar mod for SA2 in my video on that, but this mod is where the original idea to do this came from. Made by my good buddy old pal S-King Blue, it replaces the English subtitle script with Windy's translation of the original Japanese script. I think this mod is for the better. I'm just not keen on SA1's English voice acting at all anymore, and this also clears up some of the weirder localization decisions. I am sympathetic to the original English cast for being at the whims of Yuji Naka's insane demands, but it's just so much nicer hearing the likes of Junichi Kanemaru and actually having accurate subs for what's being said too. This brings me to a mod I recently created myself, Eggman NPCs. While Retranslated handles all the cutscene text, it doesn't affect NPCs or anything. I don't know Japanese, so I couldn't retranslate everything the NPCs say, but I could at least make something that replaces all instances of Dr. Robotnik being said by characters outside of cutscenes with Dr. Eggman, which is closer to how it would have been in Japanese if nothing else. As a bonus, I also restored one of the few details lost in localization that I did know about. This kid after Windy Valley that originally mentioned Sonic's previous exploits on Angel Island and Little Planet specifically. Tiny, pointless details, but I like those things. The next major mod I use is the ESRGA, the AI Texture Upscale mod, much like I did with Sonic Adventure 2. These kinds of texture mods are simply a matter of taste, because sometimes they can look pretty ugly in places, but I think for the vast majority of textures it works quite nicely with SA1. I also really like the option to use Dreamcast character textures with colours based on the DX models. I think it looks just a bit nicer than the DC models do on their own. That said, I did edit my personal copy of this mod quite considerably. The upscaling effect was applied unconditionally across the board, and so certain effects, like the smoke during the Egg Viper fight or Red Mountain's cloud layer, looked flat out wrong with the mod turned on. Sonic's default upscale texture also looked a tad too scaly, and Tails looked dirty, so I smoothed out the character's textures a bit as well. To go along with this, I also used Kesnos' Widescreen Flashback fix, which as the name suggests, makes the flashback sequences fill the screen properly for 16:9 displays. I actually use MainMemory's physics swap mod for one character specifically, Amy. She's alright as she is, but I actually found her more fun to play as using her physics set from Sonic Adventure 2, where she's faster, but still not quite Sonic fast. It does make her hammer flip a lot lower, but I didn't run into any level design that this really affected much. I can take or leave this one though, it's definitely a more because I feel like it kind of change than a proper improvement or fix, as I feel many of the other mods I use are. Along those lines, I also use Sky Chase Skip, which lets you do this. Not only is it hilarious, but Sky Chase is crap, and the only time I've ever actually cared about it is when going for the high score emblem on a 100% run, so I have no issues using this mod. And because I can't think of a good segue, this is where I'll also mention using Gamma's No Squeak Wheels mod, which mutes the horrendous noise that Gamma makes when he's in vehicle mode. Thank God for that. There's also a mod to improve Tails' AI in various ways, including a basic fast travel system of all things. It also makes it so Tails won't get hurt every time you jump near him anymore, and he'll actually pose with Sonic at the end of a level properly. He'll even show up to follow Sonic in the adventure field, at least when it makes sense in the story for him to do so. That brings us to the Supersonic mod, which re-implements the planned ability to let you go supersonic in Sonic stages after beating the game, akin to how the classic titles worked. This one's got history. It was made years ago by Sonic Freak 94. That version literally just plonked Supersonic from the perfect Chaos fight into Sonic's levels once he had 50 rings and did the jump cancel. He lost access to most of Sonic's moveset, and his physics weren't tuned for regular levels at all. If anything, playing as Supersonic just made it harder rather than it feeling like a cool reward. Kel finally sought to rectify that this year. His version of the mod turns down Supersonic's physics a tad, and also lets him actually use Sonic's moveset, such as the spin dash and gimmicks like jump panels. You can even configure which button activates a transformation, so jump cancel doesn't get taken over anymore. It's a major improvement over the original mod in just about every way. One thing that threw me off, yeah, it's the life icon again. Normally it uses Sonic channel artwork, like with Metal Sonic's HD GUI mod thing. But the YoshoDude64 released a mod that swaps it out for Kid Kai's artwork of Supersonic based on the Sonic Shuffle icon. I also tweet this mod a bit myself just to make it consistent with my other HUD changes, but nothing major. YoshoDude did like all the work here, as did Kid Kai by actually drawing the original art. Kel also made a mod that replaces the question mark icon used for Supersonic and Metal Sonic on the character select screen, and it shows their actual character models instead, which looks a lot nicer to me. At the time of writing this script, I had to slightly edit Supersonic's physics file, as the default physics mess up a part of Windy Valley when using this mod. That's just my friendly heads up there. And on the topic of Supersonic, I also use a mod that swaps around the order of Perfect Chaos' fight music, because ending the fight on Open Your Heart instead just feels right. And I think that's pretty much everything I use to play Sonic Adventure. It makes for a version of the game that's smoother to play, more graphically cohesive in some ways, and more stable too, at least in my opinion. It's my go-to choice for playing SA1 now. I do own multiple Dreamcast copies of the game, but contrary to popular belief, Sonic Adventure for Dreamcast is not some perfect glitch-free version of the game. It's still got plenty of bugs, and has downsides over even just regular Sonic Adventure DX, such as unskippable cutscenes and a 30 FPS frame rate. Disclaimer, that is not me saying Sonic Adventure DX is good or better, it really isn't, but it did have a couple of actual improvements, and credit where it's due for those. To that end, PKR is actually working on a mod for the Dreamcast version of SA1 right now that adds in DX's couple of improvements, which is cool. That said, it's mainly geared for emulators, and if I'm playing on PC, at that point I'd rather just play the PC version with these mods anyway, although I can see for Android devices and such, this mod will probably come in a lot of handy, and I know playing Dreamcast on those kinds of devices is very popular now. If there's any other Sonic games you'd like to see me talk about like this, just give me some suggestions. It's not always very interesting, so I may not be able to get a video out of all of them. For example, with Sonic Unleashed, I can just say, I play it on my Xbox Series X, and leave it at that. But I'm always up for hearing suggestions. But with that, take care everyone, and have a great night.